So I'm lucky number 7. Good news is I don't play golf, so this should take about an hour, hour and a half or so, which actually is how long it normally takes. Let's see how fast I can do this. So thanks, Tom, by the way, for putting this together. So yes, we are the new, in a sense, Department of Commerce is what we used to be called. Now we're WDC. So what I like to call us is we're a non-state state agency. What I mean by that is we are 100% funded by state funds. We are state employees, but we have a board of directors that sets our tone, our policy, determines where our dollars are spent. So we get a lump sum. I think this year is around $70 million. We develop programs based on feedback we have from our regional and local partners, business community, et cetera. Feeds into our board of directors, which has private sector CEOs on it as well as electeds. It's chaired by the governor. And then we use that feedback and that direction to set policies and programs to then meet the needs of the business community. So it's a little different than most other state agencies. So there's some flexibility there. Quickly, WDC has basically 4 main divisions. We have an international group. That group works with businesses that are looking to do international trade. We do trade missions. We co-fund programs such as Export Tech to help companies figure out what types of markets they might want to get into, how to get into those markets. We co-fund the actual travel to those markets, et cetera. We have a business and industry group, which is more of a statewide or what I'd call a mega regional approach to economic development. So that would be your consortiums, transportation consortiums, or in Milwaukee we have the Water Technology Institute, where companies that are in the water technology business, we pulled them together and are working with them as a collective. So it's more of it's more of that one-off. It's more of that kind of targeted or traded sector approach, if you will. We also have an entrepreneurship and innovation group. They work with the startups. They offer tax credits to investors as well as low-interest loans to move a product from design through manufacturing to marketing and then to full deployment. And then we have the group that I fall within, which is called the Economic and Community Development Department. Community development is the side of the house that works with the local governments, local communities on infrastructure, brownfields, abandoned buildings, things of that nature, downtown revitalization, things of kind of that area. My group, the Economic Development Group, focuses directly with the businesses. So businesses looking to expand, relocate, we want to retain them here, et cetera, comes through my side of the house. And I'm called a RAM, which is a regional account manager. And yes, we've had a lot of fun with that. And so I act as that point person for 17 counties. I'm out of Eau Claire. We have people actually in the field around the state. And I cover from St. Croix County to Clark, all the way up to Iron. Small little area. I'm on the road a lot, which is actually really fun. And we act as that clearinghouse for information. We work very closely with our local economic development practitioners and our county economic development groups and our regional economic groups. The state kind of has a pyramid, if you will, of the state regional economic development groups, which in this case is Momentum West, which is 10 counties. Then we have counties, and we have cities. So if you picture that and then flip it, is usually the way it works. So it's the people on the ground that usually meet with the businesses first, and then they pull in the state for assistance and resources, as well as everybody else that's been talking here today. And I should say, if you don't, everybody should have this on their seat, and I think the people up front don't, so I'll get you a copy. This has a summary of everything I've been talking about in it. So some other things just to bring to your attention. We also have an active recruitment group. It's actually one individual who kind of leads the state's recruitment efforts. About 15% of what we do is focused on recruiting new businesses to the state of Wisconsin, which leaves the rest of the time working with existing businesses. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's where you get the most bang for the buck in terms of the job creation retention, is working with our existing businesses. Although we do get a number of businesses that want to move here for one reason or another. This part of the state, it's because our tax rate's so much lower than it is in Minnesota, so that helps. For those that don't know, if you're a manufacturer in the state, in 2016, your Wisconsin corporate income tax will be 0.4%, thanks to some changes that were made a few years ago. In Minnesota, it's 9.8%, so that is definitely helping drive some manufacturers this way, at least opening up new operations. I wouldn't necessarily say people are picking up and moving their headquarters here by any means, but they are opening up offices here. So our funding, in a nutshell, because this is the funding side of what we do, could literally take me an hour to walk through every single program, so I'm not doing that. And there's some, like I said, there's some summaries in the handout. But in a nutshell, it's a three-legged stool. It's pretty straightforward. We do low-interest loans, which run between 2% and 4%. We do tax credits, which are used to offset a company's Wisconsin corporate income tax. Both of those are based on how many jobs are created and the salary of the jobs. So the more jobs you create, the higher the salary, the more money. They're also based on the capital investment that the company makes as part of its project. We usually step in, what we do, we step in as gap financing. So we come after the private sector. So all of our applications have to have a letter of commitment from a bank, or the company has to show it has its own cash or own equity involved before we come in. We cap our assistance at about 35%. So we do not want to just have public dollars kind of driving the project. We're here to fill whatever's left over. So simple, you have $1 million project, you're expanding, buying some equipment, the whole total is $1 million. The bank comes in at 70%, you got $300,000 or 30% left over, we'll come in and try to fill that gap. If we can't do it, we also will work with our partners to see if we can do something collectively. Another rule of thumb with us is we only count jobs that pay at least $10.88 an hour or more. And everybody always asks, why does the state make it so complicated at $10.88 an hour? That's because that's 150% above federal minimum wage, and that's statute in our programs. So if a company's paying less than that, that's great, but I can't count that in any calculations that we do. We also require companies to offer at least 50% of the health care premiums of their employees. Otherwise, we will financially not help them. That is being relooked at with federal health care, but it has not been addressed yet, but it's on the radar. So those are some quick rules of thumb. The final one is on the loan side, if there is a need for $200,000 or less, we go to our regional business fund. So Levi's group takes the first stab, if you will. If they need additional financial assistance, then we'll step in. So I'm doing projects $200,000 or more. Exodus was thrown out before. I think we came in at 1.1 or 1.2 million, 2% loan. No interest, no payments for a year and a half until the building was built. The equipment was installed, and they were actually manufacturing a product. But we were the first out of 6 people who put money into the deal. So we have that flexibility to work with the private sector to fill whatever that gap is to help that business get going. So that's an example of that kind of flexibility that we have in terms of terms. And the tax credits are straightforward. You do your investment, you're in the tax credits, use those tax credits to pay off your Wisconsin corporate income tax. It's a pretty straightforward process. If you don't do the investment or don't create the jobs, you don't get the tax credits. Or if you create the jobs and then you lay them off, you pay the tax credits back, for those that have been following the newspaper recently. The final leg of the three-legged stool is we do have grants. That's shocking. Most of the time we tell people we don't. Our grants are very specialized. We have a job training grant that covers 50% of the job training costs for all new employees, and it's capped at $5,000 an employee. That's for specialized training. That's another whole story I'll get into. If you have some questions, I can fill you in on that. So that's kind of the overall project in terms of what we do. Now to talk about process really quick, and this reminds me of a joke that I've heard a long time ago, and I always tweak it depending on the audience. So there's 3 kids. They're all talking about which dad's the fastest, of course, right? The first kid said, well, my dad's an attorney. He can run the mile really fast. Of course, he does bill by the hour, so he can run a mile in about 11 minutes. Second kid says, well, my dad's faster than that. He's a banker. And, times are tough right now, and they're trying to get loans through as fast as they can. So we can probably do the mile in about, 5 minutes or so. Last kid, my kid, says, oh, that's nothing. My dad's really fast. He works for the state. He works from 8 to 5 every day, and he's home by 4. Feel free to adjust as you need on that joke. That's a good one. So we actually are pretty fast. We have an application that's 4 pages with a bunch of financials. Our application process takes about 30 days. It's pretty straightforward. We do have 7 underwriters, former bankers, all of them. That's good and bad, depending on how you look at it. We do a full-blown background check and all the financials related to any of our programs. And we rely on the bank, of course, as I mentioned, to go first, so they're also doing the same background checks type stuff that we are. The drawback with the state is you cannot start your project until we've approved it. There's been a few companies over the last year that got ahead by a week, and they forfeited a fair amount of money. So the message today is, one, talking to your local economic development folks as soon as you can, because they're the ones that usually pull the state in, and then talking to the state early and often. It's a collective. Most of my meetings, in fact, I was at one last week, just about everyone who's up here speaking today somehow gets involved. Either we're in the meeting to begin with and talking and understanding what the project is and figuring out who can take what piece, or we're talking behind the scenes constantly and saying, okay, gee, I can cover the building side of things at $1 million, and the other person, like Levi, can say, hey, I can take a piece of equipment and I can cover that at $200,000, and the bank comes in for the rest, or whatever it is. So it's a collective that works very closely together with the business to figure out the best deal to help that business succeed in whatever it's trying to do. So the message is meeting with us early and often, because things change a lot. So then when we're ready to go, we can get the application into the state. Comes through me, everything within my region. I have to approve it all. I send it down, the application with a memo with my recommendation for funding. That then goes into our process. Our underwriters meet every Wednesday, and our management team meets the following Monday for approval. Once it's been approved, hopefully, a letter of intent comes out, usually that afternoon, that says to the company, if you're going to do the following, we'll supply you with the following financial assistance. As soon as that letter's received back to my agency, signed, the project can start. So that's always the challenge, is just timing-wise on when a project starts versus when we can get the funding out the door. So how was that? That was pretty quick. That's it. Thanks. Oh. I should mention, since I did bring enough business cards, inside this folder at the bottom of every page is the state's website. You can go to that site and fill out a questionnaire electronically, and automatically, based on where you're located, we'll send you to my equivalent, and then we follow up. Thanks.